Hello, Calaveras County, and welcome to another edition of Mondo Calaveras. I'm your host, Mike Taylor, and you know, this show, I've talked about it, and we've been kind of governmental, it seems, since we've started. But I'll be honest with you, what I really want to do with this show is talk about the fun things there are to do in this county. And I'm going to slip out of grammar school here in a minute and say one of the funnest things to do in this county is go to Airport Day. And Airport Day, if you haven't heard about it, happens in April, and it's all because of this woman, my guest today, and that is Kathy Zancanella, the manager of the Calaveras County Airport. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to come and be interviewed here. I've done this before in past years, but never with my partner in the air.
I know, we've been up, and we'll talk about this as we get along here. But what I wanted to do is kind of start, Kathy, with how did you get into flying? Because it's not, I don't want to say it's not normal, that doesn't sound right, but it's a little bit unusual for women, especially, no offense, but your age, for women to get into being a pilot.
I wasn't this age
and I know I'm going to get
backhanded.
I'm going to get backhanded in the plane next time. But how did you get into flying?
Actually, my first husband and I had a friend who was a little airplane pilot, a little Luscombe, much like the airplane I fly now. Excuse me. And we thought that would be a fun thing to do. And so I went to work at the old airport where Carroll Kennedy was. That was back in '68.
Okay.
And I got my license and get rid of my husband, but kept flying. But anyway, that was where I started in aviation, was with Carroll Kennedy.
At the old Calaveras County Airport, which was right here, kind of in San Andreas.
Right at the edge of town. Airplanes could almost taxi down to Highway 49 and did a time or two.
I was going to say, what I remember as a kid was as you came out of town, sometimes you'd be coming out and a plane would go right over your head.
Yeah,
it's kind of like over in Jackson now at Martell.
Well, really?
Yeah.
That is a... Anyway, what... the problem with that airport in San Andreas, other than the smallest, was it was substandard by federal and state standards, and so we couldn't get any grant money to improve the airport.
Okay.
So by getting the Chamber of Commerce and everybody involved back in the 70s, and we ended up buying this property out on the old Guttinger Ranch, and now at this airport, we've been there now for 33 years in December, and all of the improvements I make out there I do with grant money. The old airport was, instructors from the Bay Area didn't want to bring your kids there or their young pilots there because it was so small and kind
of frightening for them to land at.
It was really.
Yeah, because I don't think I ever took off in a plane there.
It was the best place in the world to learn to fly.
Oh, I bet, because you're not going to make a mistake. You don't have room.
And I've got some great stories about flying back in there once without a throttle and
oh my gosh,
with a couple of supervisors with me. Just some really fun things. And one of these supervisors said, well, what do you mean you need a new airport? You didn't even use half of this. And I got out, my knees were shaking. Well, thank goodness I used the right half.
Now, were you manager of the airport when it was back at the old location at all?
I worked for Carroll and West down at the old airport. And when we came up here, I came with the airport and my travel agency, remember that?
That's right, Motherlode Travel.
And so we all worked together at the new airport. And 26 years ago in 1989, Brent Harrington asked me to be manager. But we had gone through, from the time we got there in December of 1981 to 89, we'd gone through about 6 managers.
Oh my gosh.
And we
almost like the CAO position now.
yeah, really. But what...
Sorry, that's your boss, I shouldn't...
No, that's right. It came around, though, didn't it?
That's right.
Anyway, we had somebody in mind who was a pilot and actually brought. And he was retired, and we thought, oh, that would be just so wonderful. And Brent Harrington says, well, Kathy, I have another person in mind. How would you like doing it? And at that time, I was working in the travel agency only, and I thought to myself, that sounds like a winner. So I did, and I've just basically made the airport my life.
You really have, and I don't think it's one of those things. Like I've explained to viewers, this show's about the people that kind of make this county and this area work. And I know from talking to pilots out at the airport, and not just pilots from here, but pilots on airport day, which we'll get to in a minute, who fly in from all over Northern California and rant and rave about you and our airport. Now, why is our airport so cool to these pilots from out of the area?
I'll tell you why. It's because we make that airport an old-fashioned place to want to go hang out. Back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, with my little airplane, my Taylor craft, and some buddies in little airplanes.
It's not mine.
We flew all over the country in our little airplanes and to little airports. We hit little airports everywhere. We've been to Mount Rushmore. We've been to the Grand Canyon, to Calgary, Canada, without a radio, mind you, and up to Canada and Vancouver Island, everywhere. And the places we went, the little airports, you always found the nicest people. You could always find a car, a pickup.
That's something that I don't think anybody would expect, but I know for a fact that you have loaned your truck to pilots who need to run into town to get a bite to eat.
And I do that. And for that reason, or my car even sometimes. It's just what makes our airport successful. And we have other airports around the community, Mariposa and Oakdale particularly, Turlock, that have come and asked me, and I've gone and done speeches to them, what makes your airport work? Number one, we only have one person on the airport that does anything, that makes the decisions, and that's me. And Brent, when he hired me, told the supervisors, leave her alone. Let her run the airport. She knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing.
And over these 30 years, that's worked. I don't take direction real well. A lot of times I'll ask for forgiveness instead of permission. And it's worked, and sometimes it hasn't worked, and I've grown with that, and I'm a lot nicer now than I used to be. But the fact that the whole county works well with the airport. They don't try to tell me what to do. I don't try to push anything over.
That's right.
I work through the federal and state grant applications, and when I don't know what's going to happen when I retire. Hopefully, it won't be for the next 5 years, but you can't have 2 or 3 or 4 people running the airport.
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians or something.
Too many Indians and not enough chiefs or something. But there really isn't that much to do. I work Monday through Saturday. I get paid 40 hours a week. But I go work at 7:30, go home at 5:30, work Saturdays.
I've been out there
because it takes your personality to make it work.
It does.
They want somebody to be there to go out and say hi when you're gassing your airplane and help them.
Well, now you mentioned gassing your airplane. I'll come to that in a second, but I've seen you out there on Saturdays.
Every Saturday. Well, you know why I have to be there on Saturday.
A lot of times what it is, and folks, I don't think you know, but because of like Worldmark and some of the vacation spots we have very close to our airport, let's be honest, there's a lot of people who fly in to that airport, and then you help organize the carpools that take them over to Worldmark where they're staying. I've seen clubs of, well, this is a bad pun, clubs of golfers, but I've seen, you know, troops of golfers fly in with all their stuff, and they come in their small planes. So there'll be 5, 6, 7, 8 little planes come into the airport on a Saturday late morning. They're flying over from the Bay Area or maybe from farther north. And you make it really a special stop for them, because it's not like, oh, go get on some bus somewhere. It's, hey, hop in my car, I'll get you over there. And I have seen it, folks, so if you want to congratulate somebody for being an ambassador for Calaveras County, Kathy is the person to thank
What about
for
Mike?
that. Well, I do my part once in a while. You mentioned fuel, and I have also heard from a lot of these pilots who fly in that you have the cheapest gas in Northern California.
Well,
is that true?
Well, it was. It was for a while. Right now, it's kind of evened out. But my philosophy, and as far as fuel goes, at airports, most always the FBO or the fixed base operator has a fuel concession. Well, that was true at our airport, and there came a point just after I became manager when the fixed base operator couldn't afford to fill the tanks to do the leak test on an underground tank. So I said to Brent, let's do it. Let's the county do it. I'll set the price, and that's what's happened. And what I did, I want the county, when you did it that way, when the FBO had it, the county got 6 cents of every gallon that he pumped. And that's what they made them fuel. Now that we have the gas, I have a minimum 20 to 25 cents a gallon. And I don't market higher than that. Because I don't have a truck to maintain, I don't have people to maintain because it's self-service. It's a beautiful setup. And eventually, other airports got smart.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
So they've caught up to you, huh?
Yeah, because, you know, if you pump 3,000 gallons a month, which was kind of average, used to be, and get 25 cents a gallon, and then suddenly you're doing 8,000 gallons or 6,000 gallons, you're still getting 25. That's still a pretty good write-up.
Oh, yeah, you're still doing...
So that's how I figured that, and that's how it's come out.
Because that is something, you know, we all know that when we're out on a vacation...
And they've tried to tell me over at the county, well, everything is going up, you gotta raise your prices. I says, hey, it's economics 101. You know, you sell more fuel, you bring more money in. It doesn't have to be more money per gallon, but you're bringing more money in.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I do.
Now, so they land, pay a relatively inexpensive price for fuel, and they enjoy Calaveras County, but you've done a lot more with the airport, especially in just the past, I want to say maybe 10 years.
I've been doing this for 26 years,
well, I
Mike.
know that, but...
And what you do with an airport is you work to make grant money from the FAA. The FAA, Federal Aviation people, are willing to give small airports $150,000 a year toward a safety program. If you have something that falls into that, and you can accumulate that money. I just got through doing a $800,000 grant that redid all the lighting on the runway.
Oh, that's right.
And because of the way we manage the airport, we have plenty of money in our airport kitty. Now there's another thing. We have an airport kitty. It's a enterprise fund, so all the monies that come into our airport go in there, that enterprise fund. All of the expenses come out of there. There's not a lot of expenses for wages because there's only me.
Sure.
But the FAA wants us to be self-sufficient. They don't want non-aviation things on the airport.
Oh, I see.
And so the sheriff built a building out there, and that's non-aviation, and we had only one way into the airport, and we had everyone's running around on the ramp, and the FAA really doesn't like that.
Doesn't like that kind of stuff, huh?
So I needed a road around and back. Well, you can't do a road for a private business. So I had to get creative and say, okay, we're going to put new hangars down there. Let's get a road into the new hangar area, which brought the road around the back and up to where the sheriff's office was.
Okay.
And so they were happy. They didn't have to drive through our gate and that sort of thing. So that worked, but that's how you use, and there's a lot to the different kind of grants. The state grants I get, the FAA gives me 90%, state gives me 5%, and we have plenty of money in our enterprise fund to pick up the other 5%.
To make some matching funds kind of thing?
So matching funds things. We do not take one dime from the county general fund.
I was going to mention that because I was pretty sure that was true, but I
true.
didn't want to put you on the spot, so to speak.
No.
But that is something else. That's something that doesn't happen in government. I
No,
mean, it's
no,
pretty
it doesn't.
remarkable.
And we have I've seen 5 twin airplanes sit out there in one day because there was an organ donor at our hospital, and they were taking organs to various places.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
This is why the airport is so important. And the forestry helicopters, they bring their own gas trucks, and they park them out there, and the helicopters fly in, and the airport is a very essential part of a community.
Well, now, something that's really cool that I bet a lot of people don't know, but I know they do notice it a little more in the newspapers because the past few years, well, past several years, the Experimental Aircraft Association has done a much better job getting the word out.
That's right.
But folks, if you haven't heard of the Young Eagles program and your kids are even remotely interested in flying, this is the best way to show kids what it's all about, to hop in an airplane and get into the sky. Tell folks a little bit about the Young Eagles.
The National Experimental Aircraft Association sponsors Young Eagles. Young Eagles are from 8 to 16. They have to make a reservation with our coordinator, which is Bruce Leister, and I have his phone number here. And our airfare is in April, so from May through October, every second Saturday, we fly Young Eagles. Last month we had 22 kids.
Oh my goodness.
And we had about 5 airplanes offering, and the pilots volunteer their time, their gas, costs nothing for the kids.
Yeah, it doesn't cost the participants
And our old
anything.
instructor, Mark Barenfield, does a ground school. And so the kids get some exposure to why an airplane flies
how
and
does
that
it
sort
get
of
up in
thing.
the air?
That's right. And then they do a pre-flight check of the airplane with
walk
the
around
pilot.
and examine the plane.
And then each kid has an opportunity to fly in an airplane. And like in my little airplane, it's just one kid, so that's but then we have so many different kinds of airplane. Mine's an old-fashioned 1946 vintage
And
basic airplane.
It's a funny plane, and it freaks a lot of people out when I tell them this, because I've been in Kathy's Taylorcraft, and I always joke that, Mike Taylor getting into the Taylorcraft. But no, the funny part of that scene is watching these big long legs coil up and then unspool inside that plane, because there's not a lot of room in it. But what freaks people out is when I tell them that the wires for the control cables and whatnot are running around inside the plane with you. And me,
It's not that simple.
No, I know that, but a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I'm getting into a caveman airplane, rather than getting into
here's the best thing. We take the door off when you go with me.
I know
me.
that's the highlight for the kids. And what we're talking about, folks, is in February during Random Acts of Kindness Week, several of the elementary schools have participated in, I think one year the most we had was, what, 7?
I think so, yeah.
I think it was 7, and it was just fantastic. But sort of I'll call them the king of kindness week was Michelson Elementary School. They started it all, and the math club there got in the habit of creating formations on the field, and every kid on campus goes out on usually a Tuesday or a Wednesday morning. Lately it's been Wednesdays, and they go out and the math club has figured out and calculated where all the kids need to stand, and they stand, and Kathy and I fly over and I snap photos and we run them in the newspaper that I work for. Well, over the years we've had schools come and go and join and whatnot, but we've got it down now to such a great morning, and Kathy and my thing to say between each other is there's nothing better than Calaveras County in the morning from the air. It is so beautiful. It's even in these brown times of year, and even with the drought.
It's not brown.
It's golden, I know.
Thank you.
But especially springtime, the green is just, you feel like you can reach out and eat it. And but from Michelson, we'll fly up a lot of times to Hazel Fisher, and that's an interesting one because that school sits in a little bowl there by White Pines Lake. And we went up there one year, and let's put it this way, your pilot would have come on to the radio had I not been sitting right next to her and said, we're going to experience a little turbulence, folks, because we were bouncing around like peas in a pod. It was really something. But it's just amazing to see. And then to go to, a tiny school like Hazel Fisher, and then across the eastern side of the county to West Point and see, 70 or 80 kids out on that field, but with just as much enthusiasm and sharing that message of be kind to one another.
And down in Copper and down in Valley Springs.
We've been to Jenny Lind and Valley Springs.
And the nicest part of all of this that you started up in Murphy's, when we do 2 or 3, whenever Mike tells me that, that's okay, I got my pictures, then I'll go out and make a run on the airport.
Oh, that's right.
With a slow
I call it the flyover.
Yeah.
And don't tell anybody from the FAA, but we do a nice buzz over, and that's Kathy talking about the door being off the airplane. I literally hang myself out and wave at the kids as we fly over.
They get so
and
excited.
They just go crazy. And I'll never forget the one year we were at Michelson, and they asked us up there to thank us for what we'd done.
Oh, yeah.
And we got those great big, they're like blue ribbons that every kid in the school signed it, and I still have mine at my desk at work. And but one of the kindergarten boys asked, aren't you afraid you're going to fall out? Asked me that. And the interesting thing is I am wearing, and I call it a 5-point harness. I don't know if that's what it's called in airplane parlance, but I'm wearing a seatbelt, and I'm not worried at all about falling out. And the camera's tucked into my... I couldn't get out. That is part of the thing.
We're so tight.
That's right. That's right.
But that's a great thing. Before we wrap this up, I want to mention what's happening at the airport right now.
Yeah.
We have 2 full-service fixed-base operators. That's maintenance facilities. We have an avionics facility.
Okay.
We have an aircraft restoration. What's he building there? Russ.
What isn't he building is usually the question.
And we actually now have a flight school there that just opened up.
Oh, okay.
And he has a little 150 that he teaches in. He also is a tail dragger pilot, so he gives lessons in tail draggers.
Okay.
And that puts a finishing touch on our airport because we haven't had that before.
Not since Mark retired,
right?
We had Mark Barenfeld.
And Mark, he retired 6 or 7 years ago. And then we also have our EAA chapter out there. And
I should kind of tell folks that the experimental aircraft doesn't mean it's planes that we hope are going to fly. They're just kind of a class of planes that the FAA has said these guys might mess with them a little bit, and so
Oh,
they
they
certify
make-
them to
they-
fly,
they buy-
and
make
they're
their
all
own airplanes.
inspected and everything like that. So it's not like these young eagles are going up into Orville and
no.
Wilbur's, paper airplane.
Oh, that would be
No, they're. In fact, some of those EAA guys have some of the coolest planes out there at the airport. If you ask me, they've got some of the they've got some of the
some
sports
really
cars
nice
and
stuff.
some of the really cool stuff.
We have out there about 69 airplanes that are based at our airport.
Okay.
We've got 60 T hangars. Oh, whatever other information.
That's what a plane. You call it a T hanger because they're kind of
that's
T-shaped,
only one airplane
right?
fits in it. Yeah. We've got the float. We have a float plane operation.
that's
We
right.
have had that for a long time. Rob David started one many, many years ago. But here again, we have Foothill Aviation.
Yep.
Is
And that's
he's our
Jim
Jim McLeod. You
yep.
did an
I
article
remember.
on him.
Yeah, he took me up, and we flew all over the high
High
country
altitude.
lakes, the high
Yeah.
country lakes of the Mother Lode, and Jim knows every puddle of water where he could possibly land a plane.
Yeah.
And just sitting in the plane with him was really cool because he's got stories like almost all pilots do,
Yeah.
folks. And when Kathy talks about, being kind of a cool place to sit down and just sort of shoot the breeze, so to speak, pilots are cool people to do that with because they've all got stories, and of course it's like fishing. Eventually it becomes a little bit of one-upmanship, and you've got to kind of out-tell that story about the big fish that got away or the landing that almost didn't happen. But
Or it did happen
yeah.
inadvertently.
But Jim flying around, he flies off of a pond, and it is a really cool thing to take off and land. And we landed on a couple of lakes, and he knows all of the Mother Lode. It's really interesting
He
how.
is an incredible person, period.
Yeah.
He's moved up here now with his wife and it just absolutely loves our
Yeah.
airport and being up here.
Yeah.
He does. He used to be a maintenance manager at San Jose Municipal Airport.
Okay.
So he has lots of experience, and he's worked in all kinds of different things, as well as flying. He's a great mechanic.
Oh, cool. Now, we're really getting short on time now, so Airport Day is always in April? Is it the
Airport
third
Day
weekend?
is always in April, depending on Easter, and the third or fourth
Weekend.
Saturday.
Okay.
This in 16 is going to be the fourth Saturday, because on the third Saturday, Sam Kittle, who is my man on the ground, that made. If you were out there this year, this was the best we've ever had. There was
great.
200 airplanes out there.
Oh my gosh.
We flew scenic rides for almost 300 people. Got
Wow.
scenic rides.
That's right, $10 plane flights, folks.
Yeah,
Again, with those
$5 for
EAA
kids.
pilots and $5 for kids, it's
that money-
an afternoon long.
That money, those charter flights, the pilots donate their gas. We cannot pay for
And
anything.
everything.
Their gas, their airplane, the whole thing. And that money goes to Young Eagles scholarships
To help kids who wanna
get
get-
into flying.
And
Yeah.
we have flown through a half hour, Kathy.
Goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, just stop by the Calaveras County Airport
that's right. Show
sometime.
'em the t-shirt.
That's right. Show them the T-shirt real quick, and stop by the Calaveras County Airport. Thanks for joining me on Mondo Calaveras. I'm Mike Taylor. Enjoy.